Ladies and gentlemen, our service today honoring the memory of Ted Kohn will be conducted by Rabbi Michael Barclay. Before we begin, please take a moment and make sure that your cell phones are off or silenced. Thank you.
Esaina el harim me'ain yavo ezri. Esaina el harim me'ain yavo ezri. Yavo ezri mim Hashem ose shamayim ve'aretz. Yavo ezri mim Hashem ose shamayim ve'aretz. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lekach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarak. God gives, God takes, and we bless the name of God. The words I just chanted are the words of King David. They mean, literally, I lift mine eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? And the next line is often mistranslated. What it actually says is, my help comes from God who is creating the heavens and the earth. Not created, but creating. And it seems appropriate for Ted, who created in so many ways, whether it was through business, through being an entrepreneur, whether it was being with his relationships with his family, but was always very specific in how he created and what he created and how he wanted to. And so it seems an appropriate way to begin this ritual. In Hebrew, the term for funeral actually means escort. It is a double entendre. We are here to both escort his neshama, his soul, to a different way of being, and we are here to escort ourselves to life without him. We do it with words, we do it with music, we do it with action, we do it with stories. And I want to encourage all of you to please tell stories to the family over the next days and weeks. Tell your TED story, especially to the children and grandchildren, so they can continue to pass those stories on. And there's no better way to begin that ritual, that escort, than with the words of family. And so, Bob, if you'd be kind enough to say some words both on behalf of Beth and of yourself.
Thank you, Rabbi. And thank you for making that an easy act to follow. I'm channeling Ted today, if you're wondering why I'm wearing jeans. He wore jeans to Mom's funeral and to Dad's funeral and to Uncle Barney's funeral and to Roy's funeral. And he would wear them to my funeral. So this is my way of thanking him for everything. Before I say anything, I'd like to read something that his daughter Beth is unable to read. And I appreciate why after. So this is Beth Sanchez, Teddy's daughter. And I won't do the Marissa Tomei accent. I have much to say about my dad. I honestly don't know where to begin. When my dad, it would have been easier for her, I think. When my dad was in the hospital, he said he was worried about me, and I told him I'd be okay. Truth is, I lied to him, and I'm sorry, but I'm so not okay. I miss my dad already. I loved him with all my heart. He was truly one of a kind, to say the least. Those who knew him know exactly what I mean. My dad was a rock star. He would hate today because he never made anything about him. He hated to be the center of attention or anyone thanking him or doing something nice for him. He would have given anyone the shirt off his back, his last penny, fly or drive anywhere to help anyone who needed help, and even teach neighbors to drive because he loved doing things to make things easier on people. It's funny to me he taught a close family friend to drive because I only drove with my dad one time. It was in a parking lot and I slammed on my brakes because a bird was on the ground. He said, "Beth, put the car in park and get the hell out of the car." Yeah, I added the word hell, I'm sorry. He probably said it and you don't remember. He drove home. He drove home, and the first thing he did was pour a huge glass of scotch, and that was the last time I drove with him. But what I love most is he had no problem driving with anyone but me. Makes me giggle. Everyone who knew my dad would say his best trait was he was a jokester and hilarious. He was king of busting people's balls, and I loved it. Most of all, I loved how much he loved my mom. Mom, you are amazing, and Dad may have hated your cooking, but he loved everything else about you. Thank you for taking such good care of him. I can go on, but I won't. Truth is, I can't. My heart is broken. I know I have been the luckiest girl to have had the most loving, funny, loyal, supportive, and caring dad for 44 years. Dad, I know you are looking over me, and I'm sorry I lied to you and said would it be okay. I'm not. I'm not okay because you're not here with me. I love you so much, and I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. I love you, Dad. Now for the comedy. Just kidding. Horrible. I'm glad they had these things here. So, there are really two families that made up Ted, the Kohns and the Steins. It was a magical combination of families. And I'm happy to say that there was our mom's parents were Samuel and Rose. I was named after Rose, Robert, and they had Harold and Edna and Barney. And Harold and Betty had Judy and Lee. And Judy's here with us. And I'm looking for Lee, and there he is. And Judy had two children, Patty and Tony. And Patty is here, I know. And I hope Tony is too. Okay. And I'm happy that they're here too. My dad was the son of Frank and Ida and his brother Roy. And Al met Edna Stein. And there's Ted, Matt, and me. And Joanne, who married Ted, is more like a sister than a sister-in-law, and always has been to all of us. And their children are here, Beth and Todd, and their grandchildren at the house. And Frankie and Sammy are here as well. My kids couldn't make it. They couldn't afford to come. No, I'm just kidding. So we lost a lot of people recently in the family, in the Steins and the Kohns. Harold, many years ago. And they were mainly spaced out, in terms of time. Then there was Mom, and then there was her brother Barney, and then there was Dad, and then there was Roy, and Teddy today. I lost a woman, it was my wife 2 months ago, who loved Teddy to no end. Just go back to Barney for a second, and that is my mom's younger brother. He would say about Mom, she would talk to you straight from the shoulder. In other words, tell you the truth, exactly what she was thinking. And he could have been talking about Teddy. I think we all know that. And Teddy was perfectly honest, whether he was ball busting or being a loving dad. My wife was a very good judge of character. She was an editor and a publisher of books, fiction books for the most part. And she absolutely loved Teddy. And in many respects, my wife was the opposite of Teddy. Teddy may have been a ball buster. My wife was never that. But they were very much alike because it was, as Beth said, it's never about them. It was always about you. Completely selfless, the two of them. And Teddy was, and this is why my wife just loved him so much. He was a great big brother to me. He used to drive me to Jones Beach. And my mother told me a story, and I remember this because my father was out of work for a while, and he was doing arranging to raise money for the family in between jobs. And Teddy worked that summer in the Catskills doing waitering in the Flagler Hotel or whatever. And I'll never forget, my parents' bed was flooded with money. $1, $5 bills, thousands of quarters. It must have been $2,000 in change in money. I didn't even never know it. I never knew what that was at the time. I may have been 8 or 9. But my mom told me later on that Teddy gave that money to my parents during that time when they were out of work. And he never asked for the money back. And that was Teddy. That's the way he was. Teddy and I watched a movie, It's a Wonderful Life. It must have been at Christmas time, you remember, with Jimmy Stewart playing George Bailey, another selfless character. And Teddy told me during the movie, he says he always cries at the end of that movie. So I didn't quite remember why. And then, because George Bailey was a character, again, it was never about him. It was about everybody else in town. And in the last scene, we're watching this movie, and his little brother, Harry, that is George Bailey's brother, Harry, comes to the party or comes to the celebration. And somebody hands him a drink, and Harry says, "A toast to my big brother, George, the richest man in town." I'd like you to all join us at Joanne's afterwards, and so we'll be able to do a toast to my big brother, Teddy, the richest man in town. We're going to miss him. I'd like to call up my brother Matt. Or you can wait on that? All right.
I'll give you this to go with you.
Not the whole thing.
Beth, do you need some more? Matt? Beth, do you need some more? Okay. On page 6 of your prayer book, we have words that we say at a funeral. The 23rd Psalm, also the words of King David, are said at a funeral because it is a double entendre here. When we say at the end, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever," it's not just about God's goodness. It's about your brother. It's about your dads. It's about your friends. And it's important to say these words so we understand that as you do that toast, as you tell stories, that in fact he will live forever. And so I ask that everyone please turn to page 7 for the English, and please join me in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Bob, Matt, the two of you have known Ted longer than anyone else. It is your responsibility and privilege to share those stories with the children, with the grandchildren, and with everyone here. And so, Matt, if you would be kind enough to please come on up. Yeah, please.
Yes, he did. Beth, you're the star today. And 2 months ago, in New York, with Bob and saying goodbye to Susan, do you remember what you said to me? And do you remember what I said back? Beth says to me, "It's good to see you, Uncle Matty." And I said, "I love when you call me Uncle Matty." So you're still the star. Bob, you have been through just an incredibly difficult period. And you handled yourself as well here today with parting ways with Teddy as you did with parting ways with Susan. And, I always want you to know that I'm going to see you again very soon. And I enjoyed coming back to New York. I enjoyed the opportunity to say goodbye to Susan. I just have a short story because, was it true, Rabbi, did you preside over Milton Berle's service?
No, I did not preside. He was a friend and I was there.
He was a friend. Then you should be able to relate to this. I'm not quite that well...
Should I step outside? Is this going to be X-rated?
Or? You get paid extra for that? All right. Bob tells me early this morning that I'm going to be speaking today. And if you don't mind, it was like he says to me, and he's always very political with me, he said, "Do you believe in free speech, Matt?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He says, "Are you going to give one today?"
I'm using that.
Okay, that was Milton Berle. And he said it at a friend's of his birthday party. It's the first thing he said, and everybody was, so you can... I just have one story to tell. I've had this picture of me and Teddy for 60-some years. And I'm the smaller one. Here, hold it, Bob. Show it around, Bob. That was one moment in time that I remember crystal clear, because I was the little boy under maybe 5 or something or less, and the boy who couldn't sit still. That's who I was that day. And if you notice, Teddy has his arm around me. It wasn't an accident. He was holding me still. And inside, I know that I was laughing because I wouldn't look at the camera, because he had his hands digging into me from the other side. And I remember that moment because it was a big brother moment. And I must tell you that I had one of those with Ted, and that was enough in a lifetime. That one time. Everything else that happened after that, maybe the next 10 years I lived in a headlock, but that was Teddy. And I really didn't, think too much of it. And then years and decades later, no matter how he handled himself, not taking too much seriously at my expense, it was okay. That was Teddy. And you know who was looking over us all the time? Mom was. I think they had a special relationship, Teddy and Mom. Now, my name is Matt, and my 2 boys are sitting here. Frankie, who's named after my grandfather, Frank, and Sammy, who's named after my other grandfather, Sam. Sam was my mother's father. Now Sammy is my boy. And I want my 2 boys today to, I hope he's okay, I wasn't saying anything, to know that this is how I chose to part ways with Teddy. And I hope someday that you'll remember how we did this today and how we talked to each other, because it's going to be very important. How'd I do, Bob? Okay? Excellent. All right. That photograph, it's over there. Here, paper. That is it. This is the only one that existed. And it's had a lot of other frames over the years, but until the 99 cent store came about, I wasn't able to get it.
Sit down, man.
It's okay, Matt. You can keep going if you want. It's 'cause it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, our sages talk, they have a dialogue. They say, what's the best crown to have? Crown of power, crown of money, crown of kingship, crown of good looks. They're very clear that the greatest crown to have is what's called a keter shem tov, a crown of a good name. And that the way you can see that keter shem tov so clearly is in the love of brothers, of family, of cousins. And so, Lee, if you'd be kind enough to come say a few words about your cousin.
Thank you. That smile. That's the man we're here to honor, and that is him. So if you don't know him as well, or if you haven't seen him for a while, that's what you should remember. Those eyes, that smile, that person is. This was a very good man. I didn't know I'd be up here, so give me a second. A good man. And I think if we take the best part of that man, which was really goodness, sweetness. If you were near him, he'd always say hi. It was a big hi. He was happy to see you. Made you feel better. Made you feel really good. I don't have that. I'm just not like that. Not everyone said that. Just the women I've gone out with. But I don't have that type of talent. But I should give it more of a try. At least I've been told that by all those women. And I think if we can take the best piece of him, which is a wonderful man who was smart enough to marry a wonderful woman, who only brought joy to the Kohns, Joanne, and he was smart enough to bring her in, and what she did, and the joy, she was able to bring the mother because she had 3 sons. It was like having a daughter. So he did that. He brought that to her. That's a wonderful thing. And I think of him, and I smile when I think about him. And if we could leave thinking that kindness and sweetness and a true caring about others, and we can find a way to bring a piece of that into ourselves, then we honor him, and there's a piece of him in everybody who does that. And if we were able to do that, if we're able to bring that goodness that he had and have it in ourselves and bring it to others, he's always around then. And being good and giving to others makes you feel better about yourself, I've been told. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and I hope you do too, because it's a heck of a guy. And bringing that in, boy, it would make you feel better. I know, because just thinking about him and trying to put that in me makes me feel better. And the man is so good that he has a son and daughter, and both Beth and Todd, and both of them are wonderful people and have children, wonderful children. And as much as I like to pretend it just happens, doesn't. You have wonderful children because of what you've given to them. And a hell of a guy. And take a piece of him. Take a piece of that, what he brought, and put it in yourselves. And I think it'll make you feel better. It's going to make me feel better. And I'm going to try to be nice. Don't know no women to believe that. Okay.
Thank you, Lee. Lee, you speak of the blessing that Joanne brought by being a daughter and more than that to her mother-in-law. In the same way, Ted has been blessed as well. And so Alan is his son-in-law. Would you be kind enough to come say a few words?
Full room. So I've been part of this family for 26 years. I was 18 when I met Beth. And only a few short months after meeting Beth, there was an earthquake in Northridge, and I had nowhere to live. And Ted and Joe, they welcomed me into their house. Only a few months. Kind of saying what, Lee and others have already said, obviously he would do for others whatever needed to be done for them. So I lived with him, and he was kind of, I'm not sure if he liked me. I think he was being nice to me because he knew that I'd probably take Beth out of the house because she was a very big force to be reckoned with, very calm and patient. And I don't know, maybe a few months after that, we decided to move to Vegas, and he was the first one to say, yes, you can take her, but you can't bring her back. So a lot has happened through the years, obviously many, holiday dinners and going to their house and spending time with the family. And, the holidays, were, typical Ted fashion, right? He's got to fly in his steak from New York because it's better than the West Coast steaks. And he's got to fly in his crab from Alaska and his oysters from somewhere back east and his lobsters from Maine. And he'd cook these, extravagant dinners, and it's not because he was a fancy guy. He just wanted to give to everybody. He wanted to provide the best he could for everybody and make, these really great dinners for everybody. And so, we had lots of friends and family over during these times. And then he got sick. And I think that might have been one of the hardest things. I was telling my boys that Grandpa had a brain tumor. I think that was maybe the hardest day I've had in a while. But he went through surgery, and actually the surgery was pretty good. He had 8 great months after that. He wasn't Ted. He was kind of Ted under a magnifying glass. He was even more emotional and more funny and more stubborn, bigger pain in the ass. I'd drive up to take him to some of his doctor's appointments, and I'd leave early because we live an hour away, so I want to make sure I get there with traffic, and I'd get there 2 hours before our appointment. And, he'd be ready to go. All right, Alan, let's go. No, Ted, our appointment's not for 2 hours. Let's go now. Ted, we're not leaving now. We're just going to sit there forever. No, come on. And he'd finally break Joanne and I down, and we'd leave an hour early. And we'd get to the doctor, and then he'd be pissed because the doctor wouldn't take him. So you guys made me late. You guys made me late. Now we have to wait because we're late. And then he'd complain for the next hour until the doctor would finally see him. And it was our fault because we made him late even though we were an hour early. But that was kind of typical Ted, right? He would always get mad at me because maybe he just got mad at me because he knew that I was always late. Even today, I think I was 15 minutes late getting ready to leave your house. So, he was used to kind of getting upset with me and telling me, come on, Alan, let's go. And then, he did well for 8 months, and then, for the last 2 weeks has been, really tough, sitting with him. And I think for me, Thursday, the day before he passed, was kind of the most profound day. He was very upset Thursday morning. I think he was upset about obviously his situation, but putting his family through a very difficult time. He told me that, I've got this brain tumor. I don't have my balance anymore. I can't walk anymore. He made some comments to Beth as well and kind of teared up. And then it was kind of strange because then kind of halfway through the day, he just flipped a switch and all of a sudden he was happy. He didn't know who we were anymore. He was talking to Beth for hours about Beth. He didn't know that it was Beth, about how wonderful his daughter was, and I wish you could meet my daughter, and he was telling stories about how he was a heroin dealer, and I think someone, I don't remember who it was, said a heroin dealer. Maybe Joe was like, heroin dealer. He's like, I'm just joking, and he started laughing. And he was talking for hours, just nonstop about like crazy, just these stories. And he was laughing, and he actually was he didn't recognize us anymore though. But I think in his mind, he decided that he didn't want to put his family through this anymore, and it was healthier for him to disassociate himself. And really that day was very kind of, I don't know. I mean, I guess. When we talk to several people in the hospital, they say it's a beautiful thing when you see that people accept, and they accept what they're, what's going to happen to them. So, that day for me was very unique. It was definitely an interesting day. But I definitely can say that, when I met Ted, I grew to like him, and obviously, grew to respect him. And, he was a mentor to me. He taught me many things, through the years. And obviously, at the end of the day, I grew to love him. And I love him. I'm sorry I couldn't read your note. That was better for Bobby to read. I wouldn't have made it through that. So, that's what I have to say. Maybe one last thing. If there's any kids in the room, Rabbi, earmuffs, fuck cancer.
You're all here because in one way or another, Ted gave you a hug. Maybe he gave it to you physically, and maybe he did it with a smile, with a joke, with cooking. Alan, you couldn't have mentioned even one food that he cooked that was kosher. It all had to be shellfish. We are all here because of because of Ted's hugs. And, one of the things that sometimes Jews forget is that all funerals are sad, but not all are tragic. And while the ending may have been so incredibly difficult, this is a man who lived a full life, touched a lot of people, who affected a lot of people, and it's okay to smile as well as cry at the same time. But you're all here because of the hugs he gave to you. And so we have this prayer on page 20 and 21. El Mali Rachamim is where we ask that God give Ted a hug. that the Shekhinah, the female presence of God, embrace him and hold him. I ask that you please rise as I chant Al Malei Rachamim, followed on page 21 of us reciting the English. El Malei Rachamim shochen bamromim, Am semen achad achanat achat kanafei hashchina. B'malo kirishmuterim kizohera ke'amasirim et nishmat tovya. Ben Yisrael haKohen. Shelak leolamo began Eden tehemenuchato lachen ba'al harachamim. Yasir beseter kenafav leolamim. V'yitzroa b'tzrachim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanukba shalom al mishkavo. V'nomar, Amen. We read together at the bottom of page 21. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of your divine presence, among the holy and the pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto Ted, who has gone to his eternal home. Author of mercy, bring him under the shelter of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May you be his inheritance. May his repose be in peace. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. There's a teaching in our Talmud that the merit in coming to a funeral is in the courage to be willing to be silent. It's a strange concept. The idea is that all of you want to come up to the family right now and give your hugs and tell your stories. But I'm going to ask that you have the courage to be present with them without actually imposing upon them. If they want to start a conversation, I guarantee you they can. And allow them to have the space. Because after about the 10th or 20th person, it kind of feels like a bad wedding reception. So I ask that you have the courage to please be with all the family members. Allow them to initiate the conversation as we continue this service in a different location. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi will conclude the service at the interment site. In just a few moments, I'll begin ushering you from the chapel, starting with the back rows. You'll be exiting through these doors to your left. And once outside, please return to your cars and we will follow in a procession to the interment site. Following the service, the family invites you to join them at Joanne's home at 5956 Cahill Avenue in Tarzana. Driving directions will be provided as you exit the chapel. And the following have been asked to serve as casket bearers. Casket bearers, when you hear your name, please come forward and wait by the casket for further instructions. Todd, Alan, Al, Jordan, Lee, Bobby, Dave, Danny, and Chris. Jason? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until you've been ushered forward. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Around here.